3-1. Yankees trying to get some offense going, trying to counterpunch a little bit because the Jays, this game was right there within reach despite the struggles of Luis Gil. What's your Hyundai opening comment?
Yeah, Luis Gil just could not find the zone, Bob. He had no command of his pitches throughout this game. He threw 99 pitches. 51 of them were strikes, so it was almost an even split of balls versus strikes. He faced 23 batters. He walked 7. It's actually miraculous that he got through 5 innings, that the Blue Jays didn't erupt for more runs, but you could tell he just wasn't himself on the mound. A lot of pitches up in the zone, didn't want to throw his slider early. The changeup was his best pitch, but it was a slog of a start for a young pitcher who has a terrific arm, and that's why the Yankees want him out there, because they want to see him throwing that crisp fastball and pairing it with the slider and the changeup. But as Michael Kay and John Flaherty detailed throughout the game, this was just a pitcher who was searching for his stuff. He put the Yankees in enough of a hole that their offense never rebounded against Bassett.
Well, let's take a look at how he put them in that hole. It's our turning point of the game, brought to you by Montefiore Einstein, the official hospital of the New York Yankees. And it begins in that second inning where things just unraveled for him quickly. Now it begins with the actual bat to the ball against him. Cavan Biggio leading off the inning, going to get a slider of which he threw very few, and he bounces it into the right field corner for a ground rule double. So man on second, nobody out, and then the problems with command begin.
Yeah, 3-2 pitch to Kirk. He decides to go change up. He misses wildly with it. Runners on first and second. With Varsho up, he takes that fastball up and in. He walks on 5 pitches. Bases are loaded. There's a mound break to try and give Gil a breather. It's not going to work. He ends up walking IKF on a 3-2 pitch. Again, missing wildly in the zone. Blue Jays did him a little bit of a favor here. Kiermaier chases that pitch out of the zone after watching how much trouble Gil had with his command. And then you're going to see that wild pitch right there on a changeup. Even Kirk can score on that one. Blue Jays go ahead 2-1.
And then he eventually retired Springer and Vladdy Guerrero Jr. to get out of that inning. So, Jack, it is so curious. You look at that, 5 innings, just 3 hits and 3 runs and 6 strikeouts on any given night. That would probably get you a win, but it's the 7 walks that really jump out at you, coming with the bases loaded, just getting himself into too much trouble.
It's the 7 walks. It's never really finding yourself. I know that Aaron Boone in his post-game press conference will probably praise Gil for gutting it out and getting through 5 innings, and he does deserve that, because after 2 innings, he was sitting at 51 pitches, and you would have never thought that he was going to get through 5 innings in this game, but he just never made that adjustment to go back to finding the command of his fastball. That's his best pitch. Coming into tonight, batters were 1 for 16 against his fastball. He couldn't throw it straight. Couldn't throw it for a strike. He couldn't throw it to the corners. He actually threw more balls than strikes with his fastball. That's not a prescription for a win.
Now, despite all of this, you mentioned the Blue Jays only scoring 3 runs. So Chris Bassett, their starter, had to do a little bit of work to get the win. Let's take a look at our Ford highlights. They're presented by your local Ford stores. And this was Bassett. And, Jack, as we came into this, his numbers in his first 3 starts were not great, an ERA of about 5, but he did a nice job keeping traffic off the base paths.
Yeah, that's a perfectly placed sinker right there to get Judge in the first inning. Top of the second, he's going to have Rizzo, and he goes upstairs with a 4-seamer to get him. Volpe, who has been scalding hot, stares at that cutter right on the corner. Top of the 6th, it's going to be Judge again. He can't catch up with that sinker. Nice movement on that. And then top of the 6th, 1 out, runner on first. Rizzo with a ground ball to Biggio. He flips to Bichette. He's going to fire on to Vladdy for the double play. Top of the 7th now. The Glaber strikeout is going to be the final out that Bassett collected, 6 1/3. He does the classy thing and acknowledges the crowd, but we talked about all of the pitches that he featured, Bob, and talk about a tale of 2 different pitchers. You had the veteran working both sides of the plate, using a bunch of pitches, keeping the Yankees off balance, and you have the rookie who didn't have his stuff, and the Blue Jays, when they were patient, made him pay.
Now, Volpe does go 1 for 4, a single, a stolen base. Juan Soto has walked in 9 straight games, but we remember that Guardian series. They were walking like crazy. They were getting on base. They were creating traffic. Just not able to do that against Bassett tonight, who, I guess, Jack, when you talk about, he's supposed to be, what, an 8-pitch pitcher? Even if you have 5 of them, as a hitter, you're not quite sure what's coming. if you compare that to, let's say, facing a pitcher who that night is a 2-pitch pitcher.
Yeah, we just showed just within that highlight package, you saw a sinker, you saw a 4-seamer, cutter. He also has curve, changeup. He's got the 2 sliders, a slider and a sweeper. And we talked about this on the pregame show. This would be a battle of the Yankees' selectivity, which has really shown this year as they have the highest walk percentage in baseball, against Bassett, a guy who likes to come right after you with a bunch of different pitches. And tonight, Bassett won. He really silenced that Yankee offense. And then the bullpen, including the Yankees' old friend Chad Green, coming in and locking the game down.
Meantime, the Yankees went 1 for 5 with runners in scoring position. The Blue Jays 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. Blue Jays win it, though, 3-1. Let's hear from Aaron Boone now. And the manager's report brought to you by Toyota.
Aaron had some opportunity there in that second inning, but overall, what was Bassett doing to keep this offense quiet?
He is the epitome of the kitchen sink. He'll throw everything. I mean, he will make things up on the fly. He's very good at just coming up with different pitches, so it's hard to really get a beat on him. And he has pretty good command with everything. That sinker's his bread and butter that he gets to, but, he'll mix in the slow curve. He'll change speeds on the slider. He'll cut the ball. He just, mixes it up just about as good as anyone. And we just weren't able to get a beat on him once we got settled in, too.
Speaking of command, Luis Heel seemed off tonight. 7 walks for him. Do you attribute that at all to the extended layoff, or you just think it's a matter of not having it?
No, just a tough night. Credit to him for being able to get through 5. I mean, it's a testament to just how good his stuff is and how hard he is to hit. Almost anyone else goes out there and does that, and they're hanging 7, 8, 9 on you. And on a night where we're really short, he battled through it, actually finished pretty strong. But obviously, that was an issue for him tonight.
You mentioned battling through it. 5 innings for him, his longest outing of the year. 3 runs kept you guys in the game, essentially. Is that just an area of growth for him, of being able to give you guys innings and grind through it when he doesn't have his best stuff?
Well, I think it just goes to show you, when he's in the strike zone, he can be dominant and will be dominant, and that's just that next level for him is just getting, and that's what we've seen. That's where we've seen growth with his ability, his strike throwing ability. Tonight it was a challenge for him, and if that continues to improve, you got to peak even on a night where he struggled, how difficult he is to square up. So. Glad he was able to kind of grind through it, especially on a night when we had to have innings.
You mentioned the extra rest. Was there anything in particular you saw that contributed to the command issues?
Maybe a little out of whack with his delivery is probably the best I can say, and had a handful of misfires.
I'm encouraged what you've seen from Marinaccio.
Yeah, and that was nice to it was a big 2 innings for us tonight. And efficient, filling up the zone, mixing his pitchers, the sliders getting in to be a little bit of a factor for him. But obviously the changeup's his bread and butter. But I like how he's getting the fastball more consistently to where he wants to get it.
Aaron Boone with a pretty good breakdown there of Luis Heel and the problems he have. And as you started the show, Jack, you mentioned consistently 2 up in the zone, but also some of those pitches that we saw yanked away from right-handers into the left-handed batter's box that Austin Wells basically had to chase down.
You don't have to be a pitching coach or a former major league pitcher to watch Luis Heel tonight and know that something wasn't right. And you just detailed part of it, Bob. Trying to throw pitches up in the zone, but throwing them too up in the zone. So was he not finishing everything there? And then whenever a pitcher yanks a pitch the way he yanked some of his pitches today, something is not right with the way that they are releasing the baseball, and they're just spraying it to the outside. So that happened with the fastball. That happened with the changeup. John Flaherty was all over the fact that we didn't see the slider at all. In the first 2 innings, he didn't throw one. He finally threw one, and that's the one Biggio whacked for a double. So for some reason, he and Wells came out of the bullpen and didn't think the slider pitcher was a weapon for him. That made him a two-pitch pitcher. And, Bob, when you're a two-pitch pitcher and then you don't have your fastball, suddenly the Blue Jays are watching that in the dugout, and they're kind of sitting on changeups, waiting for him to throw strikes. But I do agree with the other part of what Boone said in that interview. The guy's stuff is electric, and the Blue Jays probably should have had more runs than they ended up getting off him tonight. He saved the bullpen. He kept it to a 3-1 deficit, but the Yankee offense never mounted a comeback.
Well, let me just do a quick follow on that, because they almost, the Blue Jays, get themselves into trouble, right? Like maybe they thought, oh, he's a two-pitch pitcher, we can figure this out. They get too aggressive, and they just give themselves outs.
Right. They got the win tonight, so they're happy, and they're smiling in their clubhouse. But Bichette getting picked off in the first inning, that was inexcusable. I think that absolutely was called from the Yankee dugout, because Heel doesn't have the quickest pickoff move, and he even stepped off, and it was a slow motion, almost pickoff move. Second inning, Kiermaier, after watching Heel, a young pitcher, walk 3 straight guys, strays out of the strike zone to swing and miss. So, but again, that goes back to what Boone said. Heel's stuff was good enough to make Kiermaier do that. So a lot of lessons learned by Heel tonight. Chief among them, you got to throw strikes. You can't face 23 batters and walk 7 of them. You got to throw strikes at the major league level.
All right.
It is a speed limit enforcement of 100 kilometers ahead of about 400 meters. It is a speed limit enforcement of 100 kilometers ahead of about 200 meters.